Ford 5.0 Mustang engine. I guess just being a little drama queen because a bolt broke off. Bad water pump. That's what I'm replacing. Took some stuff off. As you can see, once I got here, we broke off a bolt in here. So now I need to take off this timing chain cover. Of course, I need to pull these pulleys off, which are a pain. I gotta get underneath the car and still undo a bolt to get this out of the way before I can undo that bracket, which allows me to pull this cover off. This cover is attached right down there. I don't know if you can see it, but the point is, when do you stop? When do you say, oh, we're right here, we might as well, stop here? Because as soon as I take this off, I'm gonna see the timing chain, and I'm gonna okay, how about I just replace that? And then now that I have all this stuff off in the bottom, I'm like, okay, by the time I'm done with this thing, it's gonna be an almost perfect engine. Still need to replace the clutch though. So much to do. So right now, I just sharpened that over at the grinder. Maybe you can hear that running in the background. Get that crap off of there without scratching this too much, There's always gonna be a little bit of scratch when you do it. You just wanna try to keep it flat while you're doing it. So it's hard to do with one hand, but basically just go back and forth and clear it up. Bringing out the heavy artillery. Goes to show something so small takes so much time. Still have that little speck on the right to clean up, but much better than before. Almost ready. It does look like there is about a little more than a ½ inch of play on this left side. Not so much that side, but as you can see, it's just baked on there. So I'm gonna go ahead and take this off and replace it with a new one, and then I'll make this all look pretty before I install the new one, of course. Before I could take that timing belt off, this hole right here actually had a bolt broken off in it while we were trying to take off the water pump, because that goes through one of the water pump brackets. As you can see, the water flows through here and the water pump would be right here. Anyways, it was one of those bolts. I ended up, it was, looks like either that one or that one, but it is definitely for sure that one. I had this broken off inside it. So essentially I needed to take the timing cover off after I drilled, but I didn't want to buy a new timing cover, so I kept just drilling. And then eventually I took a hammer to the top of the timing cover without hitting too hard, and it broke that portion free. As you can see, I broke it off, and you can see my drill marks. I didn't want to go too deep because I didn't want to go into the block, of course, but also I didn't want to damage that. So I drilled a couple times, try to keep the drill aligned, felt right, and so then I picked up a hammer and tapped it, and then that came off, and then this was still sticking out with this nub, and I ended up just taking that torch to it, heating it up for a little while, and then I ended up taking my little mini plumber's wrench and getting a good grip on it and twisting it right out. Okay, as you can see here, I took off this over the crankshaft, and that's the inner side. I cleaned it up, cleaned the bolts. That slot you're supposed to leave it open. That allows oil from the oil pan and timing chain to get slung and go into that little slot right there. So I'm putting that back on, and then obviously I'm going to grab a timing chain, put that on. Done cleaning it up. I still have a tiny little bit of detail to do, but only about 2% on the timing chain rim, and have all my bolts labeled, try to keep my head on straight and keep making progress. Now I have the timing chain installed. Well, not really, I haven't put the bolt in, but I'm gonna use my rubber mallet to pound this down. And the main thing was to get this triangle right here. I don't know if you guys can see it, but there's a triangle right here, and you want to get that aligned with this circle right here. It's not focusing, but anyways, got the tapping on, tighten everything down, and continue. Now that the timing chain's on, I'm going to go ahead and set up the gasket. You have to cut out the cork, and I want to make sure all these failure points are completely clean, which they currently are. That side's on there, that's the right stuff, gasket. Underneath the top, on top of that is cork, and then I'm going to put the right stuff on top of this when I put the timing cover back on. So I need to duplicate that. Has the seal for the bottom, and then a big gasket. Gasket's going on. It's still wet behind the blue gasket, which is the upper gasket of the timing chain. And the bottom ring that goes underneath that lower gear was actually set and put to this first. And so this will join with my cork lip, which is going to be this lip right here. So I'm going to prep that as well. Quick tip, if you are replacing your power steering pump pulley, or excuse me, power steering pump with reservoir, one of the problems with these pulleys is you got to keep these aligned, and these teeth need to be squeezed together. So what I did is I just wrapped a glove around the clamps that go underneath the lip, and I placed this circular rim, circumference rim, around the tool. And I guess let's see if it works. It should work. You know what, I have to do this with two hands. So basically just hold that portion right there with a 1/2 inch crescent wrench and impact away. Pull up. Well, hot dog, Jiminy Crickets? Putting the pulley on is harder than taking the pulley off. I literally had to secure this top piece with a breaker bar so that I can crank on this as hard as I can, which forces the pulley down. Almost there. Okay, crank pulley or harmonic balancer is on. That just took 500 taps with a rubber mallet. Secured it in the middle at the end with an impact gun, since I didn't have a 1/2 inch wrench on me, but I did have the socket. Pneumatic, and it seems to went on straight. My only concern is that front main seal, the lip. When I push this pulley in, it has that shaft that goes around the shaft, and the lip on the seal is folded inward, but I think once I start up the vehicle it should just pop right out. I think it has two little lips on there, and the inner one is, you know, slanted towards the crank, and then there's one on the outer portion which is pointed towards the harmonic balancer. Here is the new water pump. So it's finally starting to look like an engine again. So next is thermostat. I did find a replacement bolt for this one off of Amazon, It was similar length and exact thread pitch. It's a little bit shorter than the one below it, but I just used red Permatex thread lock for the shorter one to make sure it doesn't come out. Also put a little bit of lubricant on the upper portion of the bolts, and then just some blue thread lock on the rest of them because they're regular size. Trying to keep clean and move forward. Around a third headed home. Just got the AC compressor and the power steering pump installed back onto the bracket, and then plugged the AC compressor back in. Just put this pulley on, but before I put on the fan onto those 4 holes you see in the middle, I need to put in the radiator. That's the oil cooler right here. Clean up a little bit, and then I can put the fan in. No, excuse me, the shroud and then the fan. And there we have it. 5.0 timing chain replacement. Engine's back together. Since I placed the power steering pump while I was in there, I need to pick up power steering fluid. I might give it an oil change, add some Lucas, and see how she is running. Old Betsy. Okay, here's the final product. I did turn her on. She started up right away, started purring like a kitten, and then a horrendous belt noise started to occur. I had to adjust the belt tensioner because the alignment was off. This tensioner, if you tighten that, it'll suck it too close that way, throwing the alignment off, and this part of the belt rubs on this pulley here. At first I thought it was my alignment of my power steering, since I installed that and didn't impact it down enough, but luckily it was just the tensioner. Adjusted the tension, loosened it, which brought it out a little bit, and fixed that problem instantly. So here she is, timing chain replacement. She runs beautiful and rocking and rolling.